In this ever-changing, always improving tech world, it's almost a given that when the second half of the year rolls around, there's already newer and better tech waiting for you. And because OnePlus has in its DNA the belief that one should never settle, the company doesn't wait a full year to roll out new features. Instead, the popular OnePlus smartphone is released twice a year. Earlier this year, in 2020, we got the OnePlus 8. And today, 6 months later, we get the OnePlus 8T with a fresh new design and some cool new features. But is it worth its $750 asking price? Hi, I'm MICHAELJOSH, you're watching GadgetMatch. This is our OnePlus 8T unboxing and review. Before we dive in, this channel is dedicated to helping you find the right device to match your needs. So if this is the kind of content that you like, or you want, or you need, then consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost you a lot, but it will help us reach our next milestone. As is customary, we have this giant reviewer's box with a retail unit inside. How do we open this up? Ah, yes, let's slide off the sleeve and then put the box back down. If I remember correctly, you push down on both sides. There you go. Hello. Pull this up to lift another box with the reviewer's guide. This is always helpful, but we'll set it aside for now. Also in the box, ooh, cases. Oh, and there's a new style this time. This is called the Quantum Bumper Case in Cyborg Cyan, and the usual Sandstone bumper case also in cyan. We'll take a closer look at them later, but for now, let's pull on this ribbon to get out the actual OnePlus 8T retail box. Peel this off, lift up the lid, and over here, we have a packet with the SIM ejector tool, an invitation letter from CEO Pete Lau, quick start guide and some safety information, and stickers. Next up, down here it says Warp Charge 65, the new Warp Charge wall adapter, now with a USB-C port. Notice the red accent inside is gone, and it's also slightly bigger than the older 30-watt charger. We'll definitely be doing charging tests with this later. And now onto the phone itself, OnePlus 8T. Last but not least, a USB-C to USB-C cable. Before we move on and put the phone through its paces, first, protection. Let's try on these cases. The Quantum Bumper Case isn't your typical jelly case. It has layers underneath, mimicking the insides of the phone. It's also got a frosted matte finish that's smooth and soft to the touch. The Sandstone bumper case is very similar to the ones that came with my OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro. Depending on the year, OnePlus T models can look like their predecessors, or could be completely different. This year, they're similar, but also slightly different. This shot comes courtesy of my buddy Tom, the tech chap, who has the 8 and 8T in this similar shade of teal. Notice while the shape and curves, and in this case, the color of the 8 and 8T are similar, the camera module has been moved from the center of the device to its left-hand side. OnePlus says this change has helped them improve thermal performance and improve the placement of the phone's antennas. I asked Tom for a bit of footage because I have the glossy Interstellar Glow OnePlus 8, which is as reflective as a mirror and is a smudge magnet. OnePlus says the new aquamarine green finish is designed to be glossy, but less prone to smudges. While it does pick up the occasional smudge, it's not as bad as my OnePlus 8. The other big difference is that the OnePlus 8T doesn't have a curved display. I personally am happy to see it go. It definitely feels like an upgrade. Button and port placements are all the same, as you can see in all of these shots, but the power button and mute switch have been intentionally brought lower. It's a subtle change, but OnePlus believes it's going to be better for one-handed use. When it comes to specs, the OnePlus 8T only has minor improvements versus the OnePlus 8. They still run the same top-of-the-line Snapdragon 865 processor. Storage has been bumped up to UFS 3.1. More significantly, its battery capacity is also larger, with support for 65-watt charging. OnePlus CEO Pete Lau says they decided not to release a OnePlus 8T Pro this year because, quote, 8 Pro is still one of the best in its class. While the OnePlus 8 Pro doesn't have the 8T's faster 65-watt warp charging, it does have wireless charging, a Quad HD Plus display, and faster LPDDR5 RAM, plus an IP rating, which the 8 and 8T do not have. Camera improvements are also not as big as one would expect. The OnePlus 8 and 8T share the same wide-angle lens, but the upgrades include a wider 123-degree ultra-wide-angle camera, more megapixels on its macro camera, and a fourth camera dedicated to black and white photos. You know how I feel about unnecessary cameras just for the sake of having more cameras. I personally would have been fine with just the wide and ultra-wide-angle lenses. This larger camera bump was also unnecessary. But first, let's take a look at some samples. The dedicated macro camera has a focus distance of 3 centimeters, and with enough light, the results are pretty good. Its monochrome camera also does a better job than the OnePlus 8's software-based black and white mode when it comes to recreating that black and white film look. But again, it's such a niche use case. Okay, now to compare it versus the OnePlus 8. Let's start with what's clearly different in the spec sheet. The OnePlus 8T's wider ultra-wide angle lens is pretty evident. Notice it captures the entire satellite dish on the left-hand side of the photo, as well as the sidewalk on the right-hand side. But while it's not as wide, it appears the OnePlus 8's ultra-wide angle camera does a better job in low light, as can be seen in this photo of a makeshift Malaysian hawker center in downtown Manhattan. The OnePlus 8's photo is brighter and sharper. And to make sure that this wasn't a one-time thing, I took these low-light ultra-wide angle shots in my bathroom, and the results were pretty similar. OnePlus uses the same Sony IMX586 sensor for the main camera of the OnePlus 8 and 8T. The results are similar, but not exact. It appears both cameras are tuned differently, and you'll notice these slight differences in these photos. Both phones have a different way of handling the blues in the skies, or the warmth of a photo, as can be seen in this portrait shot of Chai. I like how the OnePlus 8 captures the glow from the sun shining on her face. The OnePlus 8's photos can also sometimes have a bit more punch to them, something that could be addressed with a software update. As the sun begins to set, both the 8 and 8T shoot very similar photos, this one of the sun setting on Manhattan, and a bit later as blue hour kicks in. But it appears as the light starts to fade, the OnePlus 8T does a better job handling low light scenarios, even if its camera hardware is the same. These flowers were moving, so we took a whole bunch of photos and picked the sharpest ones. The 8T's photo was brighter. And here's a low light test with only my studio lights on, set to 5%. The 8T produced a brighter shot, although I'm not sure what that fuzzy bit of noise is on the top left. Of course, this wouldn't be a review if we didn't compare it with similarly priced phones. The OnePlus 8T's shot will be on the left, the Galaxy S20 FE in the middle, and the Pixel 5 on the right. Forget camera specs now, let's just base it on the camera samples themselves. We'll start with the main camera. It's fall in New York City, and in some places, it looks like it. I like how the Galaxy S20 FE made this otherwise gloomy day a bit brighter with the fall colors dialed up. However, the OnePlus 8T's photo is probably the most accurate representation of how it actually looked. It also did the best job in this photo of city bikes. I like how it didn't blow up the clouds in the sky. You can see a variation of colors from light blues to gray. The Pixel sky is just white, no detail whatsoever. These next two examples are hard to compare, partly my fault because I didn't shoot them from the exact same position apparently, so I'll let you be the judge. But otherwise, all three phones are capable of producing some creamy depth of field and those lovely bokeh balls of light. This is my buddy Salvador DOGGY. You should definitely follow him on Instagram. I'll put a link to his handle below. Because of his deep black fur, he can sometimes be hard to photograph, and the sun had already set at this point. The OnePlus 8T aggressively brightens the photo at the expense of detail. I'd say sans any night mode, the S20 FE does the best job. As we zoom in, you can see the details in his white patch of fur, as well as the phone number of his daddy, but we've intentionally blurred that out. With night mode on, the Pixel 5 does what it does best. low light photography. When you shoot against the sunset, your subject will most often than not just be a silhouette. But the Pixel does a great job at lighting Chai's face while keeping the colors of the sunset rich and vibrant. Unlike on the S20 FE, the OnePlus 8T keeps the colors and the overall photo bright, but again, at the expense of detail. Finally, one last extreme low light test using night mode. Again, the findings are consistent. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about camera specs, but it's important to point out that only the Galaxy S20 FE has a dedicated telephoto camera for those zoomed in shots. Sometimes you just need to zoom in. So here are two examples. This one of a church in the West Village. If you zoom in on the inscription, the 3x optical zoom lens of the S20 FE captures enough detail so you can actually make out what's written. The Pixel 5 uses software for something called Super Res Zoom, and it does a decent job for digital zoom at least, so you can sort of make it out. On the OnePlus 8T, also cause it's not a bright sunny day, it's just a fuzzy mess. It's the same case in this photo of a pride flag zoomed in to 5x. All three phones have ultra-wide-angle cameras though, and while the OnePlus 8T has a wider camera this time around, the S20 FE's is still the widest of the bunch. Notice again, however, the OnePlus 8T does the best job at capturing the details in the clouds. The S20 FE, like the rest of its more expensive big brothers, blurs out the details in the clouds. But when it gets dark, without night mode, the OnePlus's ultra-wide-angle camera isn't very good. Details start to get fuzzy compared to the other two phones. The OnePlus 8T has a 16-megapixel selfie camera, and here are a couple of samples taken during the day and at night. Also new on the OnePlus 8T is a feature called Video Portrait, and here's a sample shot using the phone. Earlier we also shot this clip of Chai. Notice the separation of her from her background and her foreground. Of all the OnePlus 8T's new features, its 65-watt warp charging has got to be the most important. First, it's something that's not available on the OnePlus 8, not even on the more expensive OnePlus 8 Pro. Second, charge times are insanely fast. In my tests, a full charge from 0 took only 68 minutes. A 10-minute charge gets you to almost 50%. So if you're looking to justify that $50 premium, this might make it worth it for you. In my tests, the OnePlus 8T lasted a full day of use and then some. But with charging this fast, you also kind of forget it ever running out of battery. For example, the phone might be at 10% when you wake up, you could plug it in while you brush your teeth or shower, and have more than enough to last you the full day. To achieve this, OnePlus says it utilizes a technology called dual charging. The phone actually has two batteries, and dual charging charges both batteries at the same time. The OnePlus 8T runs a new version of OxygenOS based on Android 11. It's a departure from the more stock-light spirit of OxygenOS with something more fresh and modern. I personally don't mind, but I'm curious what you loyal OnePlus fans think of the new update. It is, by the way, rolling out to other OnePlus devices, so it's not a OnePlus 8T exclusive. So, is the OnePlus 8T your gadget match? Let's talk about pricing for a bit. The OnePlus 8T starts at $749. That's $50 more than the OnePlus 8's launch price, which at $699 is quickly becoming a sweet spot for more affordable, top-of-the-line phones. The likes of the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE, the Pixel 5, and the just-announced iPhone 12 mini. The S20 FE is probably the OnePlus 8T's biggest competition out of the bunch, also with Snapdragon 865, a 120Hz display, and a 4,500 mAh battery. Plus things the OnePlus 8T doesn't have, like an IP rating, wireless charging, and a telephoto camera. In the hands, the OnePlus 8T looks and feels more premium than the Galaxy S20 FE. The S20 FE's polycarbonate shell does take away points. And let's not forget its super fast charging speeds. If I were to recommend a phone based purely on value for money, I'd recommend the S20 FE because it offers more for less. That said, the OnePlus 8T is a really good device, especially for those looking for an affordable smartphone running Snapdragon 865. Its speedy 65-watt fast charging is industry-leading, and it is, without a doubt, the prettiest at this price point, rivaled only by the iPhone 12 mini. I just can't get over that $50 premium, and I wonder if OnePlus could have reduced the price by removing that dedicated macro or black and white camera. This is compounded by the fact that OnePlus is keeping the OnePlus 8 around at a reduced price of $599. And then there are rumors that the OnePlus Nord is also coming to North America later this year. So while there's nothing intrinsically wrong about the OnePlus 8T, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. And having said that, there are more compelling choices out there, both from competition and from OnePlus itself. If you're really excited about that 65-watt warp charging and want to experience it today, I don't blame you. It's pretty game-changing. Go ahead, by all means, upgrade. But the more prudent thing to do is to wait for the OnePlus 9. What do you think? Sound off in the comment section below. And while you're at it, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon because we have a lot of videos coming your way very soon, and I want to make sure that you get notified first. Follow me on social media for all the behind-the-scenes fun stuff. And as always, make GadgetMatch.com your daily habit. Until the next video, I'm MICHAELJOSH. Thanks for dropping by.